Welcome to the Game Sense Football Podcast. We are Ewan and Nas, and today we are talking about some of our pet peeves in football, which may make us seem like biased, weird, and horrible people. But we assure you, we're perfectly nice and level-headed. And the idea for this episode was inspired from the podcast Football Cliches. So if you hate it, you can blame them. But before we start on today's episode, Nas, I'd like to ask you a random question. Where's the favorite holiday destination that you've ever been to?
That's a good question. I think my favorite destination might be Tokyo, just because Japanese food, nice weather, interesting architecture, history, weird stuff like owl cafes and Super Mario go-karts on the streets. But I also really enjoyed, we went to Barcelona a few years ago, and we made the trek to go to the Camp Nou. Unfortunately, we couldn't do the tour because the Barca B team were playing a game, so the stadium was closed. Very annoying.
Barcelona, I think that's one of the places that I haven't been to that I really want to go. And, just because it's related to today's topic, what's one pet peeve that you have when traveling?
Oh, pet peeve with traveling, I think it's sort of an internal thing where I get really paranoid about missing flights and I tend to leave for the airport very, very early.
Yeah, don't we all hate that? So I'll start with, some of my pet peeves in football. The first would be, sometimes when you go onto online forums, comment sections of articles, and you just see people like such snobbery, going on there. And I'm not talking about banter here about teams, but those fans who like to correct others. Oh, you're not using the right term. It should be football, not soccer. Yeah. I mean, honestly, if somebody uses the term soccer, do you not know what they're talking about? They do, right? I mean, there's really no reason to be snobbish about it. It's not wrong. Just maybe a little bit of cultural differences. And I think the term soccer, it likes to be classified as something that's more American. They don't really do the whole soccer football thing. They call it soccer, but the term actually originated from the UK. So apparently some students in the 1800s from Oxford, wanted to distinguish between rugby football, as it was called, and association football. So it kind of got the name as soccer, and it got shortened down to the word soccer. So actually, there's really nothing much wrong with using the term. That's what I think. And a lot of these fans like to start arguments online, about terminology. They become grammar Nazis when there's no real argument to be made. I'm perfectly fine with team banter. I think that's real interesting and dynamic part of supporting the teams that you like. But this is, I can't stand it.
I have to admit, I've done this before. Not always seriously, of course, but I know a lot of people who very vehemently hate how people might call football soccer. When I used to work for one of a major broadcaster based in Singapore, we had a lot of British staff there, and anytime any of the American or even Asian members of the crew called it soccer, they would like almost lose their heads. It's football, it's football. You don't know what you're talking about. And the best sort of argument against this, I think, that I've seen is how obviously I think a lot of Americans call it soccer, right? Because to them football is something else. But a lot of the football clubs in the US do use the term football club and not soccer club. That being said, it is Major League Soccer. So yeah.
Yeah, I think as with a lot of words in the English language, they can be used interchangeably, right? Elevator, lift, there's not really, people don't go up in arms, when you say something differently. Personally, I use it interchangeably sometimes. I mainly stick to football, and of course that's the name of our podcast as well, right? So it's football, but I don't see anything wrong with using soccer personally.
Game Sense Soccer Podcast. Sounds very American, I have to say. Yeah. I guess the very, very academic way of looking at it is that the words you use, the choice of words and language you use has more significance than the actual meaning of the word sometimes, if you know what I'm saying. But I know what you're saying. It is largely interchangeable. They mean the same thing really, as long as you understand. But do you have any other words related to football which are interchangeable, which you don't like or don't mind? For example, I know somebody who cannot stand if somebody says, "Oh, they beat them 2-0." You must say 2-0.
Nah, I mean, I don't think that's really an issue. And do you get triggered by these things?
I think I'll be more triggered by soccer than zero, but I wouldn't yell at somebody over it. I have to admit I've corrected people over it, but then as you might know, I can be quite a stickler for certain details.
Yep, yep. As long as I don't meet you on the forums, that's fine.
You will never know.
Next, I have another one. At every major tournament that the England national team plays in, I'm not sure where this started from. For me, first time I saw it was during England's Euro 96 campaign where they hosted the tournament. So there's this whole like football's coming home thing. Yeah, and somehow my friends who support England, every single tournament, they will come up to me and tell me that football's gonna come home this tournament. And I'm like, what? You see it in the media a lot as well. I think the British media mentions it quite a bit. And yeah, I know, England prides themselves with, I guess, I don't know, inventing the game of football
Football or soccer.
or soccer, yes. But the tournament was not created in England. And
Yes.
honestly, football's always been in England, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, it just annoys me because it's just very noisy,
Can
these
you
things.
imagine how much noise there would be if they actually win something?
It will be insufferable.
Insufferable. But it's quite almost ironic that England fans love saying that their team is crap, or team or manager or both. They almost never expect to do well, yet they have this sort of seesaw up and down expectation of the team. Like football coming home, we are crap. Football coming home, we are crap. Oh, we got to the quarterfinals. No wonder we lost.
Yeah, actually, I agree, and actually, even the media seems to be doing its best to try to sabotage the team, with off-field issues all the time, right?
Mm.
Like I said, I normally don't mind football banter, but this line gets repeated so many times every single tournament. I'm not I'm not a fan of it.
Do you think we feel this way simply because we tend to naturally gravitate towards English media?
Yeah, actually, you have a point there. So where we are from in Singapore, there's definitely a huge bias towards the English media. And I guess take this however you like, but it's definitely a biased opinion on my end.
Mm.
And you're right, for all you know, in other languages, other countries, they do say the same thing. They do repeat the same drivel all over again and again.
A few years ago, I was working in the Middle East for a major broadcaster, and again, there were a lot of British staff expats there. And I remember I was speaking to one guy, and he said he loved working on England games for major tournaments. And I asked, but why? I mean, he was one of those fans who are always thinking that England will fail. And I said, why do you love working on England games when you expect them to fail? Like, are you a glutton for punishment? And he said, no, because I love putting together the emotional music montage of them getting knocked out of tournaments. He said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah," and yeah, I mean, fine, I get what you're saying. So yeah, see, I remember that was the year the World Cup where England lost to Uruguay in the group stage where Suarez scores two.
mm,
Mm.
mm. I guess
2014, I think
anything
it
to
was.
make the job feel better.
Yep, any small victory.
Yeah, exactly. Let's move on. I think my last pet peeve that I have, it's a fairly recent one, but what I really hate is watching a game of football and there's just a VAR decision that needs to be made and everybody pauses, takes five, walk around, drink water. I have no idea what they'll be doing, to be honest. I mean, taking a rest, I guess, but honestly, it spoils the momentum of the game. It ruins the viewing experience for fans as well, I would say. So like if a goal is got and a VAR decision has to be made, celebration has to be stopped, right? And the worst thing is that at the end of that VAR review, the decision made is wrong. That has to be like way up there as one of the biggest pet peeves ever. I mean, you're looking at a video review of an incident after the fact and it can still be wrong, right? So I think one of the more recent incidents is the one where Liverpool played Spurs.
That disallowed goal.
Yeah, and there was a disallowed goal for Liverpool. And we actually got the benefit of reading the release transcript between the VAR officials and the referee and the replay person. And there was just so much like jargon and miscommunication used within the conversation that everyone just kind of misunderstood each other, except the replay person who completely knew like everything was going to be messed up already. And the thing is, he's probably like the lowest ranked person there and couldn't really say anything.
As you know, Ewan, I used to be involved with VAR systems and league organizations.
Mm,
So the replay operator, that's the what the guy is called. As you correctly pointed out, he knew the referees were making a mistake, but he is not allowed to voice his opinion until they've made their judgment. And so it's not an excuse. It's barely an explanation. And you're right. It's so annoying that so many organizations have such a convoluted system for supposedly getting things right, and they can still make stupid, avoidable errors. And I
mm.
mean, obviously, we can do a whole hour on VAR about how good, how bad, how useful, how stupid it is. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it kills so much emotion that's in the game. And can you imagine if Solskjaer's winner in the treble winning season for United against Bayern, if that winner goes in and everyone has to stop to look at the VAR? That if Aguero's goal for City against QPR,
Yep.
Aguero, stop, wait for the VAR.
Yeah.
And football is such a it's about skill, it's about tactics, about intelligence, but it's also driven by emotion, and that's why we love it. That's why we're talking about it now. And just VAR, I think it's still fair to say they get more things right than wrong, but the ones they get wrong are really glaring and make you question, is it worth it?
Yep, that's right. And I think we could go on and on about VAR, which is why we won't do it here. There will probably be another episode down the weeks to come
Mhm.
that we will probably dive a little bit more in depth about whether VAR has been better or worse for football. So stay
Yep.
tuned for that.
And that episode will have a punny name.
I'm very sure. Yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay, yeah, I think that's about it for my list. What about yours, Nas?
My first pet peeve is when you're watching a game of football on TV, especially, and
Mm.
pre-match, when you're watching on TV, you get the formation graphic to show you who's playing in what position. I get very annoyed when on this graphic on screen, the keeper is at the top and the striker is at the bottom.
Why is that?
Yeah, so because if the keeper is at the top and the striker is at the bottom, that means the right back and the right midfielder is on the left side of the screen. Everything is flipped,
Ah,
you know? And I get it, if the keeper is at the top, you read from top to bottom, so you read from keeper to striker, but essentially the not the shape, but the orientation of the team is wrong. And you could argue, I mean, what is right and left. Yes, but just flip it and it's right, you know? It's really annoying.
yeah, I get what you mean. There's the whole cognitive contradiction, right? When you're
Yeah.
looking at right, but actually it's left, left is right. But in recent years, they've been coming up with all these fancy graphics where you see the actual player standing there, right?
Mm,
And I kind of get how they are doing it in the sense that they want the players to be facing the correct side of the pitch when their front of the body is actually facing you.
yes.
If you do it the way that you suggest, you see it correctly as part of the formation, the
But
left
they're
and the
facing
right,
their own goal.
but they are facing the wrong side of the pitch, which
Yes.
is it can be a bit weird as well.
I agree with you, and I totally understand that. But what I would then say is nobody really has been clamoring to see an animated image of your favorite player folding his arms. It doesn't really contribute to anything. It actually wastes a lot of the players' time, because basically the players for 1 or 2 days have to go down somewhere. Each player records maybe 6 to 8 different poses. It's arms folded. It's the fist pump. It's pointing to the badge. It's so if they have a signature pose, they do that. Like Rashford would point to his head and stuff like that. So doesn't really add to anything. I would very much prefer if keeper at the bottom, striker at the top, right and left are correct. In relation to this, not exactly the same, but teams nowadays, they always tweet out, they'll tweet out and put on Instagram their lineups before each game. I really hate it when the order of players that they use is in number order and not by position. It should always be keeper, defenders, midfielders, forwards, not
Mm.
by number. So like the other day, Liverpool against United, Willy Kambwala was playing and he's number 53, so he was last on the list. He's your centre back. It should be keeper, right back, centre back, left back, centre midfielders, right midfielder, left midfielder, forward.
I mean,
That's the way to do
well,
it.
I don't think there's a rule for how they should be listing it out, but
Oh yeah,
I get what you mean. I get what you
yeah,
mean. We're probably used to seeing the names in the order of GK, then fullback, either centre back, or maybe fullback, centre back, fullback.
yes, yeah. That's
Yeah.
that's how I would do it. But yeah, and I always think I'm right. So moving on, the next annoyance I have is when teams do not use their home kit when playing each other, even though there's no clash. I understand why they do it. It's to sell shirts, it's for sponsorship issues, sponsorship reasons. If you're Nike or Adidas sponsoring Barca and Real, you want them to be wearing the second or even third kit, so those kits are on TV, so more people buy it. But it's ridiculous when you're watching the Clasico, Barca at home, Real away, Barca are red and blue, and Real are white, right? No clash at all. There cannot be anything farther from that. There have been so many years where Real have worn their blue kit against Barca's blue and red.
Mm.
It's ridiculous. There was a game a few years ago where Arsenal played Watford. Arsenal wear red and white. Watford wear yellow and black. Arsenal wore uh, some other third kit which was almost yellow. Ridiculous, ridiculous.
Do you think it could be an intentional thing, like teams are kind of pushing the boundaries on how close they can get to the opposition's colors, as a form of a confusion tactic as well. I mean, it's
Just so
entirely possible, right?
so you think that the opposition would pass you the ball thinking you're the teammate?
Maybe not necessarily pass you the ball thinking at the teammate, but it adds a bit of a load on the mental
Mm.
workings, right, during the game, because usually you have to react quickly, but your reaction is kind of hampered.
Wouldn't that affect your own players as well?
Or maybe, part of the training session was to recognize who your teammates are, not by the jersey color.
I would love it if because when City play Chelsea, they both wear blue. This is both of them wearing their home kits. This is when one of them should change. But I would love it if one day a week Guardiola's training session is them, with in front of screens pointing at matching colors.
You never
That would
know.
that would be
You never
amazing.
know. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I mean, remember when who was it? Renato Sanchez passed the ball to an advertising board thinking it was his teammate. He would hate playing in games like this.
Oh yeah, Renato Sanchez advertising board. That was with
Bayern,
Swansea? No,
was
Bayern.
it Bayern? Yes,
I
it
don't know.
was
The guy
red.
has moved so many clubs. I can't remember which club he was at when he did that.
Okay, so my third point, I'm very particular about player numbers, their shirt numbers. And so this is a bit two-pronged. Firstly, in my mind, each number should correspond to a certain, not necessarily position, but a certain type of player. And so I get very frustrated. My brain gets frazzled when I see players with weird numbers. And I'm not talking about, let's say, Donnarumma or something wearing 99 or somebody wearing 88 because that's the year they're born. Weird, but that's fine. I get annoyed when I see someone like, for example, Glenn Johnson at Stoke wearing number 8.
Mm, Or I think Zidane, he wears 5? Is
Yeah,
it 5?
Zidane wearing
5.
5. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Edgar Davids, amazing player, right? He played for many teams, Milan, Inter, Barca, Spurs. He was also player manager at Barnet. I think it's League Two, I think.
All right.
Do you know what number he wore at Barnet?
Barnett, no idea.
He went to Barnet, became player manager very quickly. He gave himself number 1. He's the center midfielder, as you know. He gave himself number 1. Oh my God. Just looking at it, it gave me shivers. Clint Dempsey, winger, attacking midfielder, forward, depending on which period of his career he was in, which team he was playing. He wore number 2 a lot. Very strange.
Okay.
Asamoah Gyan, remember the I think, is he Ghanaian? Played
He
for
was
Sunderland
number
and a few
3,
others.
right?
Yeah. How annoying is that? I mean, okay, maybe not
Yeah.
to you, but very annoying to me. Khalid Bulharus, the defender for Chelsea,
Mm-hmm.
number 9.
9. Yeah.
Samuel Eto'o, 5. Milan Baros for Liverpool was number 5 as well. And you said Zidane, and you mentioned Zidane. You remember the most meme player of all time, Nicholas Bentner?
Lord Bender. Yeah.
He was 52 because when he was a young player, he used to wear 26. And to him, 52 represented him being twice the player he was back then.
Okay. So let me just ask you, right?
Mm,
So you get triggered when you see a player wearing a number that's not in his position.
yes.
So for example, like Asamoah Gyan, 3, right?
Mm,
Even
yep.
though he's striker. Fine. But why does Bednar's number trigger you? I mean, 52, I mean there's a reason for it, right? Like how Donnarumma wears, what's that? Does he wear 88 or something?
19,
80,
I think 99.
like, something. Basically his
Oh,
birth
yeah, his birth year. Yeah.
his birth
So,
year, right? Yeah, that doesn't trigger you. So just wanna get a proper understanding of this. It's probably not logical, right?
yeah, it's not very logical. And you are right. In a way, Bednar's weird number makes more sense than most of the others. It's just I get annoyed by Bednar. And moving away from his number 52, which I guess you have correctly pointed out that I'm unfairly judging him on, he went to Wolfsburg and wore number 3. So he joins the Asamoah Gyan club. Yeah. Ivan Zamorano, if you remember, is he Chilean? The
Chilean.
Chilean striker for Inter. He wore number 18 at Inter because he wanted number 9
One
and it
plus
wasn't
eight.
available. 1+8. Yeah.
If your position's number is already taken up by another player, that
Yep.
I guess it gives them free play on how they want to choose their number, right? Do you think that's fair? I
I
mean, not
guess
not not
so.
fair, but do you think that's
More
non-triggering?
acceptable. Yeah. It is
Yeah.
still triggering to me. But so okay. Number 1 should be a keeper. Edgar Davids, no. Number 1 is keeper. Number 2, right back. Number 3, left back. No Asamoah Gyan, no Nicholas Bentner. 4, you can be a centre back or you can be a defensive midfielder. 5, you're a centre back. 6, centre back or defensive midfielder. 7, you have to be a winger or a striker. 8 is a central midfielder. 9 is a striker. 10 is a striker or attacking midfielder. 11 is probably a left winger. Well, a left-footed winger. It has to be a left-footed winger
It has to be a left-footed
on,
winger. Okay.
on
So
number 11.
like,
Yeah.
all
Like
right.
Salah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Even though he's on the right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. But it has to be a left-footed winger. Number 7, you could be left or right-footed, but 11, you have to be left-footed. That's just, you have to be. Have to
Yeah,
be.
yeah. The universe dictates that. Yeah.
I think in my mind, I have all the numbers from 1 to 30 mapped out. But beyond that, I just don't like the numbers.
So what should backup players numbers be if that's the case?
Okay, so yeah, so 12, 15, 19, 20, 21, 24, 25, 26, 28, 29, 30 are the best backup numbers.
Okay. So I'm gonna admit I totally don't get this, but somehow, yeah. I mean, the first 11 for sure. I think that's something that growing up, I was playing Football Manager or Championship Manager as it was once called. These are the numbers that I had for the team.
Here's a question for you. When you play later versions of Football Manager or current or versions of FIFA or EAFC and you play career mode and all, and you can assign shirt numbers to players, right?
Mm,
Do you bother?
I do not bother because I do not have the same kind of triggers that you do.
I tell you, I spend so much time setting numbers. And I don't know if you know, but in the later versions of Football Manager, certain players will ask for certain numbers. And I get very satisfied telling them no. It's very strange. And, William Gallas, number 10, Steve Sidwell, George Campos. You remember George Campos, the keeper?
Keeper, yeah.
He wore number 9 for his club.
Ah, I can tell you for certain that I feel nothing about this. Okay, so if you have any pet peeves about football, things that we didn't talk about, do leave us a comment or, drop us a mail, say hi, whatever it is. Links in the description. And till next episode, we'll see ya.
See you.